whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and you pray for right to feel. And remember, you give us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of life. Send down your warriors with the hello, they carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil tries to grip, until my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide waves. Without you, there is no other. Could you be that real in my soul? No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. And no man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Yes, I will conquer. Conquer them. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer. Conquer them. I am a man. I am a champion. I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PG Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, and 92.9 Sister Ral Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you may be. A very special good morning to you. It is a beautiful, beautiful morning in the Spice Isle of Grenada. The sun is shining. We're all alive. What else should we be thankful for, if not only that? All right. This morning I'm coming down and I saw a cruise ship at bay. So I know that some of our Grenadians have been repatriated. I believe it's about 36 of them. So again, we are grateful. Some parents are happy. I saw them expressing their excitement and their gratitude for the fact that their children are home. You know, so it's a good thing. You know, I have someone here. They're listening from Guyana. Okay, don't worry, I'll share the number for a call in and so on very soon. Today is going to be a very interesting program as we continue to talk about the pending merger and liberalization of the GCNA, GCA associations, right? Of course, there are mixed emotions. A lot of people feel like this merger should not happen. A lot of people feel like the draft document that they have been privy to has, well, gives some people too much power. You know, there are a lot of ideas and ideologies flying around. But what I want people to remember, the definition of draft, right? The definition of draft means that it can be changed. It's not finalized. And that document, and let's be honest in our speaking. And over the weekend and into today, I've been noticing that as Grenadians, we tend to jump on our foot based on emotion. And it's okay to have an emotional response to something. It means we're human, right? However, when that emotion has subsided and good judgment presents itself, I want to advise that we use it, because it's very hard for me as an individual who takes time to read and understand to sit and look at a lot of these comments that I see flying around. And it's not that the information is not being provided. It's not that the information is there. But something that I've realized about human beings and the human race is that whenever we enter a situation with preconceived notions of what we expect it to be, what we want it to be, what we think it should be, we are never open for discussion. We're never open for objective debates or objective opinions. We feel that that is what it is and that is what it should be, and this is the way that we should respond to it, and it is the only way in which we should respond to it. And we have to be careful about these responses and these actions and the way that we deal with or handle certain situations. So, for example, over the weekend we had an incident where the gentleman was assaulted. Harm was caused to this gentleman, and we all felt a sense of emotion because putting ourselves in his shoes, the fact that he was he had a disability, so he was already challenged and could not defend himself, and we all felt a sense of emotion. Some of us responded emotionally, but what I want us to take away from this, there were a lot of comments, there were a lot of posts on social media. And in those posts and in those comments, we found it absolutely necessary to berate the ladies and gentlemen of our police force. And I want us to understand that the message that we are trying to send is that everyone is equal. Everyone is entitled to rights. Everyone should be respected. Everyone should be treated as a human being. But in the same breath that we are trying to send that message, we use that same tone to berate our brothers and sisters in the Royal Grenada Police Force. We use that same breath to berate people who are of a different opinion or a different viewpoint of how the situation should be handled. So we tend to say a lot of things negative towards these people. We tend to use verbal abuse against these people. And my question today is, how does that make us different? How does that set us apart from the cause that we are fighting for? How does that give validity? How does that emphasize on the claim that we are trying to make when we berate our own brothers and sisters? When we berate and belittle and condemn our own Grenadian people? You see, sometimes the problem must be fixed at home first. Sometimes we must look inside ourselves first and identify what we are doing that could be a hindrance to the cause that we represent. And I felt that it was absolutely necessary to make that point because I saw a lot of comments. Even myself, I was subject to verbal abuse. And my question still remains. How does that feed into your cause? When you are saying that Black Lives Matter and that everybody matters and that we should be treated as human beings, but yet in the same breath, you belittle and you berate and you condemn and you have all sorts of negative things to say. You see, you could get your point across without being negative. You could get your point across without being disrespectful to anyone or their opinion. You can get your point across without using an abusive tone or using abusive language towards somebody. And that is what we need to take away from these situations. How can we improve ourselves and improve our message so that at the end of the day, nobody can turn around and say, hey, look, she fighting for Black Lives Matter, but look, she on social media running down black people. You understand? We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. And that's what I wanted to take away from this moment. But this morning, we are going to talk about the merger. Now, I'm going to open the lines for a very short period to invite persons to present their opinion on what they think or how they feel about this pending merger. Now, remember, the number to call is 440-7377, 347-329-3101 if you are overseas, and the diaspora and you want to give us a call, you can use that number. We also have WhatsApp. You can call or you can send a message at 440-7377 there as well. You know, I want to hear from you what you believe. You know, what have you heard? What do you understand when you hear about this merger? Because, I mean, I know what I understand. I guide my decisions and so on based on based on the facts. All right? But I want to hear what you understand from this entire situation. What do you know about this merger? What do you know about the history of GCA, GCNA? What do you know about what farmers are expected to gain or to lose from this merger? I want to hear from you because, you know, that is important. It is important to hear from the people what they know and what they understand by a situation. We have a first caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Hello, caller. Good morning. Oh, no, we seem to have lost that call. I'm sorry. You can call back again. You can call back again if you're still listening. You know, what do you understand from this merger? Because I have some information here from a meeting that happened in 2016 where the conversation of that same merger or that merger was the topic or the point of that conversation. And I'm going to read to you, or I'm going to present to you, of course, some of the information that came out of that meeting and came out of that review that was done. You know, because it's important for us to have the facts, for us to understand what is going on in order for us to make valuable contribution to the conversation. All right, but we have a caller on the line. We're going to take this call first. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Duncan. How are everything?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
Okay. I'm okay for the time being.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Duncan, I'm concerned with the merger. You not know I hear anything about that merger between the two entities. Yeah? Not know. So I want to say, like, when I look at that, you know, like when you, like if you have, you're an employer, and you have people work with you, and you computerize your place, that means you don't need all the workers again. You need less workers. So I know if some workers are complaining, they work inside, inside they get their from. If you much, you need the amount of workers there. Right? So I would say the merger is good. And if you sell it to the middleman, and the same person that you're selling the cocoa to, the same person selling the nutmeg to, I don't see what is the problem with it. We come together. Right? And even this morning I hear someone on local and say about that government, and the government doesn't help, don't help. Meantime, our government reach out and they help. They help the both entities, when they reach the difficulties. They call upon. It's the government, and the government building them out. Right. So I would like to remember, yes, a man can supply all you need, but never try to belittle the person who helping you. Yeah. Right? They helping you, our government help. So I want to say, if all the both entities should get it active together and to work for the benefit of the farmers and not only the benefit of the employer or those who work in office. Because when you look at that, who benefiting from that? It's not farmers benefiting. It's more than benefits. So I want to say, farmers, don't let people mislead you. And when people, you don't know, people try to take advantage and mislead and give wrong information. You got to know the truth, and you get the facts. You get the facts from the Minister of Agriculture, them who knows what is going on, and get facts and true information. Don't let nobody mislead you with false information. So, Mr. Duncan, that's my.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution, caller. Yep, and he's absolutely right. Get the facts. Understand the situation before you begin commenting and making comments towards a certain situation. Because the funny thing is, you have a lot of people out there saying all sorts of things. Half of the things that they're saying is not true. Half of the things they're saying is not factual. But the fact of the matter remains, when the truth surfaces, when they understand the situation, they don't take the time to go back out there and say, okay, I was wrong, or let me clarify, or let me now provide my listenership, or let me now provide my followers with the correct information so they can be as educated as I am, and they would not continue to go out there and be and speak things that are not factual. So we have to be careful in what we say. And I want to read to you here, and this came from a study that was done from Compete Caribbean in 2016. And the general objective of that study, or that presentation that was done by Dr. McCalla, was to improve, right? And that's the general objective of that merger, to improve the enabling environment for business development, trade, and integration. And of course, specific to cocoa and nutmeg, it would strengthen, or the project is expected to strengthen, the legal and administrative framework of agriculture in Grenada, and to increase investment into the sector, specifically in nutmeg and cocoa subsectors. And I want to make this point here today. We have a lot of people out there who are talking about nothing is being done in agriculture and more needs to be done for agriculture. If you ask them what the more is, they can't tell you. If you ask them what has already been done, they still can't tell you, but they believe that more needs to be done. If you ask them to make a recommendation on what needs to be done, they still can't give you a recommendation because they don't know what's going on enough to know what recommendation needs to be made or what recommendation can work. But let government come out with a recommendation on what they think can be done to diversify the agricultural sector, to improve the agricultural sector so that we get more product out of it. And then you hear a lot of them come out and say, no, that cannot work. Then if you know what works, tell us what works. Give us your recommendations. And you see, that is how democracy works. You're able to give your recommendation. Democracy is not only meant for when you're ready to jump up and say no, you have the right to do so. It's also meant so that we are able to give constructive criticism, but also to provide ways in which we can help build our country. And that is what is most important in all of this. Building Grenada. So you have two associations, and from those two associations you have over 3,000 farmers. And I want to get some information here on, let me just pull it up quickly, on the amount of farmers. I believe it's 3,000. Oh no, I'd have to get the exact numbers, but both associations have a little over 3,000 farmers. And would you believe that most of the cocoa farmers are nutmeg farmers also, right? But none of these 3,000 farmers have any shares in the association. They have no assets. They have nothing to look forward to when it comes to the association. So when they go out there and they're talking about protect the rights and protect the assets of the farmers, I tend to ask, what are the assets of the farmers? And these are the things, or the questions that the farmers need to start asking. What assets are you referring to? What am I expected to gain from this merger? What am I losing if we merge? Because at this point in time, you have nothing to lose because you have no shares in GCNA or GCA. At this point in time, you have no assets tied to that. The only assets you have are your personal assets, which is the piece of land that you own to plant your nutmeg and your cocoa to sell to the association. That's the only asset you have. So these questions need to be asked. The question of investment, the question of where are the profits that are being made. And if for over 50 years, if 10 years, if 100 years has passed, and you are unable to say, well, these are the profits that we have made, these are the ways that we give back to our farmers, then you cannot disagree with the government when they say it is time for a merger and time for liberalization of the sector. You can't disagree with something that you have been trying for years. You have been running these associations. For years, you have not been receiving a profit. And for years, you continue to do the exact same thing and reap the exact same results. And when change is proposed, you ask now the farmers to stand against it. So these are the questions that need to be asked. And I'm tired of saying you may not like the government. You may not like Dr. Mitchell. You may not agree with everything that they do. But you must enter situations with an open mind. Because if you go in there with a preconceived notion that you already hate the administration, that nothing they do is ever good, and that you are never going to agree with anything that they say, then you are in turn holding yourself back. So we have to be very careful sometimes the things that we disagree with. And this morning, I'm going to be putting a call into a farmer. His name is Leonard St. Bernard. Now, this individual, and I'll tell you, he is a farmer, he is a chemist, and he was once the owner of West Indian Spices, I believe. So we are going to put a call into this gentleman. So we have a different perspective on this issue as it relates to the merger of GCA and GCNA. Because I hear a lot of people talking and I hear a lot of people saying a lot of things that are not true and that they know is not true. But because they believe, and that's what upsets me the most about these situations. Can you imagine? You have a spouse. Let's use that as an example. I like to use relatable examples. You have a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a partner, whatever you want to call it. Right? And something happened. You know the truth. You know the facts. Right? Now, and even if you don't know, it is something that you can easily verify. It's not something that you have to dig up and find or anything like that. It is something that is easily verifiable. And your spouse comes home every day and lies to you in your face. Let's say, for example, he used to work with a company and he gets fired. He dress up every day and he go on out. Right? And every single afternoon he comes home and you say, baby, how was your day? And he says, oh, it was wonderful. Work was so hard today. And you ask him, how is your boss and how was are your co-workers? And he says, oh, they're great. Suzanne just had a baby, and he giving you all kind of stories, right? And he knows that all you have to do is pick up the phone and make a phone call, but he continues to lie to you. How would you feel? Wouldn't you feel taken advantage of? Wouldn't you feel like somebody is playing mind games with you? Or somebody considers that you are so stupid that you cannot find out the truth? That they will continue to lie to you about things that are easily verifiable? And that is how I feel when I listen to these people telling you things, lying to you about things that are easily verifiable, with the hopes that you would just drink up what they say, not ask another question, because they are banking on the fact and they are banking on the hope that your hate for the administration and your hate for Dr. Mitchell will keep you in that place so that they could continue to feed you lies and continue to feed you these mistruths and hope that you don't find out. Wouldn't you feel disrespected as a result of that? We have another caller on the line. Hey. Miss Cammie, sorry, we seem to always be missing you. All right. Joining me in studio this morning, I have none other than Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan. Good morning to the listening public.
How are you?
I'm very well. I am a little late to your program because I was engaged in another meeting.
Okay. I'll ask you about your weekend, but I want to answer this call because I keep missing Miss Cammie. Yes. Good morning, Miss Cammie.
Good morning, Miss Duncan.
Hi.
And good morning to Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Miss Cammie.
Yeah. Are you talking about the nutmeg people? I don't really understand everything. But last night, Miss Duncan. Oh, before I start, I want to say good morning to the Grenadian people, Carriacou, Martinique, and all the Grenadians in England, America, Canada that have listened to her talk. Good morning to everybody, Mr. Watts, Patty, Deputy, everybody. Now, back to what I want to say. Last night, I was listening to be on the headline. And then we have Mr. Oliver Joseph. And I think we had Mr. Cato.
No,
One of the men there, you got from the secretary in agriculture.
Right.
And the minister, Miss Joran Bain Horsford. And Miss Bain was reading a document to explain to the Grenadian people something concerning the merger or whatever. And the host that was hosting the program started to distract the minister. So she could not have finished read the document. So people like me and others could have understand what she was saying. And that was so disturbing. You understand? And that if I was a minister, I would have never go back and no program again with her. You're supposed to, yes, buddy. You're supposed to allow the minister to explain to us so we can get a better understanding of what's going on with the Cocoa Association and the Nutmeg Association. She distracting the people. And they're reading a set of posts of people saying this about who, with some minister who have friends close and picking money. You understand? Playing a set of politics on the program. And I get so upset. So as a journalist that study journalism, you're supposed to allow the people to explain themselves and then you go to question. You understand? She always do that. And it's not nice. On GBN last night, they steal a bright more than everybody. They have all the education more than everybody. And it was so sad. And in the end, Minister Ben Horsford, Sarah, if you let me allow to finish, read that document, people as me this morning could have made a better contribution to your program this morning. You understand? They're playing politics.
Right.
Right? They're playing politics where they invite people on the program. They're playing politics. You have to have an open mind and to talk to people and take no part. People who supported who and who supported this one.
Right.
And it was very disturbing. And I know there are a lot of people in Grenada that was listening to the program did not agree with that. Before I go, Miss Duncan, that is one of my points. Before I go this morning, I know the program is about agriculture, but I saw on the news where people demonstrating in Fort Judy with some white man that hit some man. You know, and I'm very upset with that. If Miss Duncan was a black person, a local person that has hit that white man, they would arrest him, he didn't get bail yet. They are still there looking for bail. They are among that bail they are proof to get that man out of the jail. I find they eat them up. You understand? I didn't like that. Because he was a black man or he hit a white man. They would arrest him the same time. So that's why the police make an error. They make a bad error there. Although they say they arrest them now. You understand? That is what I said this morning. I know I'll get blows, but me bad broad. I could take the blows. And next thing, Mr. Prime Minister, good morning, sir. I see last night, they're doing a big piece of work right in front of me. Mr. Bola and Miss Duncan, you almost take a ride up to Pusheju and see that kind of work that's taking place. So you could give the outside people and the others that say nothing happening. What is going on in Bushes Zoo? They would now have march in school. All night after the tournament. Have a blessed day, Grenada. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Miss Kami. You take care of
too.
yourself. God bless you.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Bola, I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at Beyond the Headlines last night, but a lot happened, and I don't want to be the one to talk about it, because before I say it, they're going to say it's politics, you understand? So I want somebody else to give their view and opinion on it. But before we get into that, we should take this caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Hi. Can you lower the volume of the radio in the background, please?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not bad. I heard she said something there about Miss Bain. But what happened, I was watching the program last night, but what happened is like how Miss Bain was reading the paper. The paper was up to she face.
Mm-hmm.
So the host tell her, just bring the paper down a little. So, and she did it, because she did it. She bring it down a little. Because I was watching, she bring it up. She had it up. So, she face was barren. So she asked her just to bring it down. And she did it. That was true. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you for your contribution. So, Mr. Bola, we're back on the topic of GCA, GCNA, and the merger of the two. A lot is being said, a lot has been said, and people are still pushing the agenda or pushing the topic of two things. And I don't know if you want to speak on it quickly, because I'm expected to call or put a call into an individual, a gentleman by the name of Leonard St. Bernard. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's a farmer and a chemist, and he was also once the owner of West Indian Spices.
Not very familiar with him, but the name I do know. The individual I'm not very familiar with, but the name and his involvement in agriculture and so.
Right. But we are going to speak with him shortly. But tell us more, because the problem that people seem to be having, two things. They keep saying that we have to protect the interest and investment of the farmers. That's the first thing. And secondly, they keep saying that the draft document puts too much power into the hands of the minister. What are your views and comments on that?
Well, there are a number of other things that are being said. Maybe they are the two most prominent that you're hearing, Ms. Duncan, and so you want to address them. Let's take the second one first. The draft document. The word explains it. It's a draft document. And as I have explained before, there is presently in place what is called the Oversight Merger Committee, which is made up of the chairperson of the Cocoa Association, the chairperson of the Nutmeg Association, in the persons of Mr. Christopher Williams for cocoa, Mr. Leo Keto for nutmeg. There is Mr. Teddy St. Louis as a legal man, a private legal person who is there to assist with legal issues. You have a secretary who is or has been, I don't know, somebody who said to me, she may be retired now, I don't know, an inspector of police as the secretary. And of course, Mr. Derek Charles, who works with the Inter-American Institute of Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, as the chairperson of that. In addition, there is Dr. Linus Spencer Thomas, who is a consultant that is available to that committee for consultation on any issue, right? Why do you have that oversight committee? Is to look at all of what is being placed forward, all the documentations that is there, all the studies that have been done, and to advise then the minister, look, we need to do a change here, we need to do an addition here, we need to remove. And after all of that is done, the minister will then take the document to cabinet, because that document hasn't gone to cabinet, it has not been approved by cabinet, because it must make the rounds. There must be the consultation with farmers. That committee must hear from farmers, must explain to farmers what is there. So the draft document is for discussion. You have to start somewhere. Somebody has to put something down to say, these are our proposals, this is what we're suggesting. This is not the minister saying do this or do that. This is the Legal Affairs Division saying, if we are to merge, if the two corporations are to come together, based on our understanding of the merger and what we expect from it for farmers, and based on the legislation that govern both associations, this is likely to be what we want them to go forward with as the new legislation. But it's not cast in stone. So it has to be discussed, it has to be looked at, and that's why there's the Oversight Committee, and that's why there's representation at the highest level from both the Cocoa Association and the Nutmeg Association. That's why there's a legal person on board.
Right.
That is why you use someone with international expertise as well as international reach, because you have people, Mr. Charles will be able to call someone in FAO, for example, the Food and Agricultural Organization, which is an international organization, the Inter-American Institute that he works with here locally, and speak to them, and other connections that he has throughout the region, because these institutions work worldwide, and he can bring his expertise to bear on the document or documents, because I also happen to know that this latest draft that is being circulated is not the only draft that has ever been in circulation as it relates to putting in a new legislation for the merger. The same Dr. McCullough, who was paid by Compete Caribbean to come here and do a study, has done documentation, and he himself, as a legal luminary, had put forward a draft of what the legislation should look like.
Right.
So that is also there for the committee to look into, to draw from, to take from, to compare and contrast, and then to come up with a final product. You know, sometimes I listen to the arguments and I listen to people saying as though this is a finalized document, that government has taken a decision. I've heard people going as far as saying that they want to force the associations to sign a document. Which document? Where is that document? I've heard others say, oh, they have a copy of the draft document that must be signed.
When have you ever heard a draft document being signed?
A draft means a draft. It is something in its rough stage put forward for discussion. And even if, as was also explained last night on the Beyond the Headlines program by the minister, even if this committee, the Oversight Committee, makes changes, brings things forward, and Cabinet agrees with it, when the document gets to the Parliament, where it must be passed in Parliament to become law, after the first reading, it must sit in chambers. It must be there for at least 3 months before you go to the second and the third reading for passage, to give another opportunity to the general public to make comments. And changes can be made even while the document is in Parliament. Because based on the parliamentary proceedings, after the first reading, save and except where you have bills of urgency, and you may ask the Speaker to give you leave to take the bill to all the stages in that sitting because it has some level of urgency with it. Once that is not the case, the first reading is done and the bill can stay or should remain for 90 days before it goes into its second and third reading. And with the reason for that is because the drafters of the rules wanted people to have an opportunity up till that time to still make comments and to talk about the concerns and to say to government that, look, based on the bill that is there, it is now public knowledge, and we are looking at it and we believe A, B, C, or D must change or could change, or why we should have changes, right? So you have that opportunity. Granted that, the bill goes, and that's at the lower house where it is passed through first. Coming from there, it then has to go to the Senate, which is the upper house, to also be passed before it can be enacted into law, right? Now, granted that it had 90 days in the lower house. When it gets to the upper house, the Senate can advise changes and send it back to the lower house. Even if it is passed in the lower house, when it gets to the upper house, the senators who are there, and that's where you have the Senator for Agriculture sitting, That's where you have the trade union council having representation. That's where you have the business community having representation. And then you have opposition senators. Now, plus the government senators.
Right.
Now, if, for example, matters were brought to the attention of the agricultural senator to say, look, we have studied this bill, we have looked at it critically, we advised changes even when it got to the lower house and they didn't. The opposition senator or the senator representing agriculture or business or any one of them can raise an issue, can bring forward a point, and can get the Senate to stop the bill from continuing to move forward and have it returned to the lower house with the rationale why those changes should be made. And it has happened in the past.
Right.
History will prove that this has happened already with bills right here in Grenada. That it was passed in the lower house, went to the Senate and was sent back, retrieved to the lower house to say, we observe X, Y, Z, and those changes should be made. It has been made.
So basically you're saying that it is impossible for something of that magnitude to be given to farmers at this stage now to be signed for any decision to be made.
Of course it's impossible. I thought you was asking me if it was impossible for the bill to go through, and I was going to say, well, I can't say that. But it is impossible to give this to the farmers or to the corporations as they are now, or associations as we call them, to be signed. There's nothing there to be signed.
To be signed.
What there is a document for discussion.
Right.
A proposal to say these are the things we are proposing to go into it and to have. And that is why the associations was asked to have meetings with the members, and they've started.
But that is not what is up for discussion. Because from what I understand, they're not discussing the contents of the bill, but more telling the farmers that this is what is expected to happen, so vote no.
Well, I have not been to any of the meetings, but I've heard similar things like you have heard. Yes? And it will be foolhardy of those who are saying that, because there are other means of reaching out to the farmers. The ministry can call meetings. A parliamentary representative, for example, can decide, I am doing a meeting within my constituency to deal with the issue of merger, because there are farmers whose interests I must protect within my constituency and can establish the facts to them. Now, we keep having to go back, or I want to always go back, because the fact that some people are hell-bent on making well, not an assertion now, but promoting the idea that this is a hasty, hijacked kind of a draconian move that the government is making is totally untrue and farthest from the truth. I mean, there have been several attempts, even members of the present association board of directors, members who are sitting there on the board now, have made the point that since the 90s, the issue of merger has been on the table. The issue of the birth of the Nutmeg Association and the Cocoa Association and why they came into existence, because there wanted to be some level of control and monopolization of how nutmegs are being sold, and that the aim and objective was for it to bring best benefits to farmers. The question is today, from 1947 to now, are those associations still fulfilling the mandate of why they were created? And if they are, is it being done totally? Are farmers the full benefactors, or are benefiting sufficiently, or are benefiting all that they can from the methods of operation presently? Is the farmer's lot being improved? Is he getting a better price? Is he assured now of a pension, of something after his productive days in the field? The issue is, are we doing better now than we were doing when the association, Nutmeg in particular, was started in 1947? We know that the discussion started since 1942, and 5 years after, you had the association formed. So history tells us that changes do not come that easy, especially in that sector. Right? We have the history to prove that. And so government asking and saying, look, it is time that we move, is also very wary of the fact that this thing has been on the ground more than 20 years now, with stats and stops and hastiness at one time and discussion at another time and people giving their viewpoints at one time, but we have never concluded. And we have never gotten to the point where we all agree that what must happen to make farmers' life and livelihood better.
Now, Mr. Bola, I have in front of me a document that's dated the 10th of October 2016. And that document is speaking towards the investment of a farmer into shares of the GCA, GCNA associations. This apparently is something that has been discussed but never executed because farmers still do not own shares. But I want to also take into note that in that meeting as well, the discussion of the merger, the discussion of the liberalization of the sector happened. Now that is in 2016. We are in 2020 now, and I want to
4 years after.
4 years after, and I want to, for the benefit of the general public, note that present at those meetings, and I want you to take that into note, on both occasions of October 5th and 6th, 2 meetings in the space of 2 days happened, and on both days, we had Mr. Leo Cato and Mr. Chris Williams, who are now chairman of the GCNA and GCA. And you know, somebody had made a very important point this morning on social media, and I want to bring that point to the fore. That person indicated that for years, Mr. Bola, we all believed, myself and I only up until recently, believed that GCNA stood for the Grenada Cocoa and Nutmeg Association. So in a lot of people's minds, there was always that association between the two, that merger between the two. But now that we are talking about the materializing of that merger, for it to actually be called the Grenada Cocoa and Nutmeg Association, we all have a problem. But for years, that's what we believed that it was.
GCNA,
yes.
Cocoa and Nutmeg Association.
That's what people thought it was.
Grenada Cooperative.
It's Grenada Cooperative.
And then you are GCA.
But there's a lot of people who believed that GCNA stood for Grenada Cocoa and Nutmeg Association.
Right.
So in our minds, we already had this preconceived notion that there was this merger, this marriage, this association between the two. So why now are we making it an issue when this is actually being materialized?
You know, excuse me, interesting that you make that point. Because until now, from the many documents that has been prepared and all of the studies and so, they highlighted a couple of things that may affect the associations or what the associations may no longer have power over. But no one so far has come up sorry about this cough. With the points, 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or as many as there are, cases where the individual farmer will be affected negatively if there is a merger.
All right. And on that note, Mr. Bola, we are going to take this time to put in that call to this farmer, this chemist, this business owner who believes, well, we'll find out what he believes.
Please try your call again.
Let's try that again. We're going to try getting him so that we are able to now discuss further what the different views from different people are. Because we've spoken, we've given our views. The minister has spoken. She has given her views. We want to now hear from an actual farmer what their view is. From another farmer, because we've had other farmers who have called and given their views on it. So we want to hear from him what he believes is about to happen. And I seem to be having a little trouble reaching him. So let me try that again. So just bear with me for a moment. There we go. Success. It's ringing. That's okay. That's a step further. Hello, good morning, Mr. Saint Bernard. I am good, and how are you?
I'm good. Morning to Honorable Roland Bola and to all the listeners out there.
Good morning to you, sir.
Viewing on Facebook.
All right. Now, Mr. Saint Bernard, we thought it necessary.
You let him know that he's already
Yes,
live,
he
right?
knows he's live.
Okay.
Well, we want to start the conversation, or we want to get the ball rolling. You are a chemist.
Yeah, I'm actually the consultant chemist now at Fit for Life Medical Clinic and Allied Laboratories in Grenada.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So, just to put a plug for the business where you can come see a doctor, get all your medical tests done, and get environmental testing and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's wonderful. Right. Now, you are also a farmer. How long have you been a farmer? And give us an idea of what you've been
farming
doing.
In my family goes back generations. I mean, my grandfather on my mother's side was a guy named William Henry Otway Ferguson who owned Concord Estate.
Mm-hmm.
I myself got into farming in the 1990s upon graduation from university, and I was fortunate enough to be able to purchase some lands and to use some of the lands that my grandfather left for us to be farming. So I would say I've been farming now from about 1995.
Wow, that's a pretty long time. And you also owned what is formerly known as West Indian Spices.
Yes, I also, it was formerly known as W&W Spices. I actually went into business with Joel Webb as part of W&W Spices, and then after the hurricane, when the business went down, I was able to purchase it and rename it West India Spices, which I then sold in 2015 out of frustration because I just couldn't get enough nutmegs to purchase from the GCNA.
So just before you're coming there, Duncan, are you able to tell us why you couldn't get enough nutmegs, or what was responsible?
Basically, well, I mean, Minister Bola, you should be familiar with the situation because you were minister at that time. But the thing about it is that I was never able to get a contract or a proper agreement with the board of directors, which enabled me to schedule production. So the board in principle agreed to sell us the nutmeg, and the nutmeg we were speaking of is not the first grade nutmeg that was exported,
right,
but was the rejected nutmeg.
What we call the grinders.
What you call the grinders,
yes.
The broken pieces, when you do cracking of the nutmeg in the pool, like some of them would shatter in the cracker.
Mm-hmm.
So all the dust, the cracked pieces, all the waste basically, all the things that you can't ship there because of high alpha toxin level and because you would lose the fragrance and that kind of stuff. So what we wanted was that we wanted a contract where GCNA would say, okay, listen guys, we could give you, 4 tons of nutmeg a month, 5 tons of nutmeg a month, whatever it is. And we could work with that and basically go out there, produce enough oil that we could then sell on the international market. So we would have a consistent supply. What we ended up having was that we had a lot of demand for the product, but we just couldn't fulfill the requirements of the market, because you ship somebody 2 drums of oil this month, and then next month when they want 2 drums again, you have to tell them, boy, I can't give you 2 drums, I could only give you 1 drum because I didn't get enough nutmeg to do a distillation and that kind of thing. We actually supplied Dennis Noel. Dennis Noel was a partner with us as well, and we actually supplied Dennis Noel business nutmeg, all the nutmeg oil that he used to use subsequent to Hurricane Ivan came from us. And there was a point in time when he actually had to import from India because we couldn't even supply Dennis Noel because we just weren't getting a consistent supply from the board. We had no contractual arrangement with the board. We had no agreements, no plan, even after meeting with the board a number of times and trying to rationalize something. We even, at one point in time, we got so desperate that we even offered the board shares in the company if they were willing to invest so that they would have a stake. And of course they said yes, but then nothing was basically done.
I want us to pause there for a moment. So you're saying that the market and the opportunity was available for more of our nutmeg farmers to benefit from the sale of more nutmegs, and it was blocked?
Yeah, I mean, the market for one thing I don't understand with nutmeg, the international market for nutmeg, the demand is always greater than the supply, right? Of both the raw material and the processed goods, right? Because there are not that many players in the market, right? And the main player in the market, which is India, use almost all the nutmeg domestically. So Grenada is competing with Indonesia mainly, and of course Indonesia, you have places like Sri Lanka and so on that act as middlemen fronting Indonesian nutmeg. But the reality of the situation is that the amount of uses that you have for nutmeg and nutmeg products, the demand is far outstripped the supply. I mean, that is the reality of that business. So we found ourselves in a situation where we had all these orders and we just couldn't supply the market.
So let me ask you this. If the market was now to be liberalized, because liberalization means that it would take sole ownership or sole purchasing power for the nutmeg and cocoa out of the GCA and GCNA hands, and enable farmers to find or source other markets for their product. Because if you are saying that the supply is or the demand is always greater than the supply, it means that we should never have a problem for the sale of nutmeg in Grenada, right? So would the liberalization, in your view, would it be a beneficial thing, or do you think it should remain the way that it is?
Right. So let me answer that question and structure the answer to that question properly, right? Because it's not a simple thing as just opening it up and everybody gets to play, right? Because the market has certain rules and regulations which has to be followed. So to put it in a nutshell, I would say, or in a nutmeg shell, I would say yes, liberalization is absolutely necessary, right? And the thing about it is, one of the points I want to make is that since 1992, right, when the nutmeg industry collapsed because the GCNA had an arrangement with Cat, right? There's a trader in Europe, an exclusive arrangement where they kept the price of nutmeg on the international market the same for about 30 years. Then the price was so low that the industry collapsed in 1992. That is when George Brizan, who was the Minister of Agriculture at that time, started this process of amalgamation of cocoa and nutmeg. And it started by him going to Europe and basically finding Joseph Akamoff, which is GHB and Company. And GHB and Company was given a 5-year contract. They had to actually put money into it to find market for both Grenada nutmeg and cocoa. So on the international market, there is already an amalgamation between the GCNA and the Cocoa Association because they're dealing with the same buyer, the same agent. They're using the same agent in Europe. So I just wanted to make that point. The difference now is at home in Grenada, we still operate as two independent organizations, which I think is foolish, right? But the other part of the question now, in terms of the liberalization of the market has to be liberalized, but it has to be liberalized in a structured way, because there are what you call border entry requirements, right? So in order to meet border entry requirements, you have to put certain programs and policies in place. So the government had to play a role, right? The Bureau of Standards had to play a role by ensuring that you have the proper quality infrastructure, and the organization itself now had to put a quality system. So for example, HACCP, which is a requirement for the U.S. market, which up over 30 years now, GCNA has been saying or working on getting HACCP, and they're still not HACCP compliant. So they cannot get onto the U.S. market directly anymore. So they get into the U.S. market through a back door in the Canadian market, which going to close somewhere down the road again. So yes, we need to liberalize. We need to basically put the necessary funds into the organization to be able to meet these market requirements and so on. So liberalization for me is not just opening it up and every Tom, Dick, and Harry could just now export to the U.S. That's not going to happen, right? But liberalization means you have to take put structures in place where you allow for the private sector to play in the market as a partner, right? Along with the government, along with the farmers, right? You allow the scientists and the technical experts and so on to be part of that whole system. That's the way how I see it. And right now, the way how GCNA is structured and the way how the laws are, it does not allow for that. And that's one of the things, because the old ordinance does not really allow for that development of the industry. And to be honest with you, the draft bill that is being proposed now, I think does not go far enough. And there are a lot of gaps in it that I think we need to actually sit down and put in, fill these gaps before it actually gets passed. But I, for one, support the move, and I think it's a very good move. And I think the move is long overdue.
Okay, I just wanted to to just ask that question to you, Mr. Saint-Bernard. Are you aware that presently there exists legislation that governs the the issue of fresh produce exportation in Grenada? Are you aware that there is legislation?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Okay.
Actually, in my previous job in the Bureau of Standards, I was the one responsible for implementing that legislation.
That legislation, right. That's
but that legislation does not cover...
It doesn't cover,
cocoa,
no, I know.
Nutmeg and banana.
Right. I just asked the question just to know your knowledge. The second thing is that, are you aware that as we speak presently, and for a couple and for a while now, that there has been in place what is referred to as an oversight merger committee, which needs to do a lot of what you have just said, which is made up of 5 persons plus a consultant. Are you aware of that?
Well, I heard about it, but to be honest with you, I don't know who the committee is. I don't know
so let me quickly tell you the names.
I don't know the structure.
Right. Let me quickly tell you the names and just give you a little idea. So you have chairing the committee, a gentleman named Mr. Derek Charles, who you should know because he's been
I know Derek very well.
Working with ICA. He chairs that. Yeah. You have Miss Jones as a police inspector as the secretary. Then you have Mr. Teddy St. Louis as the legal mind. The chairman of the Cocoa Association, Mr. Christopher Williams, the chairman of the Nutmeg Association, Mr. Leo Keto, and Dr. Spencer Thomas as the consultant who they can consult with.
Okay.
But more importantly, Mr. St. Louis himself, after looking at the draft and other things, did a piece already. He wrote one paper where he was advising, very similar to what you're saying, that after the merger, there should be a licensing authority, and that the same Fresh Produce Act should be looked at. We should include amend it to take into effect what needs to be amended there, and to put an authority in place that must determine the consistency of quality for the export market. So along the lines that you have been speaking about, the committee and the legal mind on the committee has already spoken and written about that, which is something that we don't hear much about because the associations are not interested in talking about those things. But it is nice that as someone who has been in the market before, who has been involved with the market, understands what should happen and see that there can be benefits and a lot of advantage for the industry if it is liberalized and if they merge together. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, you're correct in what you're saying, and thanks for the information about the committee. And I think therein there lies a problem because, I mean, up until now, I was not aware of the information that you basically just, told me.
Yes.
And I think I would like to suggest also that committee be expanded a bit because it's a bit narrow, right? Because one of the things you have to understand about both the nutmeg and the cocoa industry is that they're very huge industries internationally, right? And there are a lot of players and there are a lot of directions that we as a country could take, right, in terms of our development of that industry. And I think the business community, right, needs to be a little more involved in that discussion. And there are a few people well in the business community that are now interested in it, right, and interested in dealing with different aspects of it, right, both cocoa and nutmeg, probably more in cocoa than even nutmeg, right? And I think those people need to be involved, or some representation of them need to be involved on that committee, as well as so there need to be somebody on that committee that understands the trading aspect of it, right? And what we as a country need to do in order to position ourselves, right? I mean, the only person that I am aware of in the I shouldn't put it that way. The only persons that I know have been basically spoken to on this issue are the nutmeg farmers through the area meetings of the association. And what they're getting in those area meetings, I mean, is basically the personal position of the people on the board.
Yep.
Right? Because the people on the board seeking their personal interests. Because one of the flaws in the GCNA system is the fact that every year you have to vote a group of people in, right, to be board members. And these people don't operate with any long-term vision because, I mean, you know how quick a year has passed. From the time you get elected, it's just a couple months before a lot of them even learn and understand the organization, and then they have to go back up for re-election again. And for them, it's just a matter of being elected. So they're doing what is in their personal interest, and that's my opinion, and not really what is in the long-term interest of the organization. A lot of them don't even really fully understand the organization that they're running, right? They're just basically looking to get a vote, to get back on the board for whatever benefits they're getting from being on the board, right?
So if you at this present moment, Mr. St. Bernard, was asked to speak to a group of farmers, both nutmeg and cocoa put together, on the issue of merger, and to advise them what you think, with your experience and expertise, what is best. Tell us, they're listening, and some are, not all. What exactly would you say to them? Using your expertise and experience in the field, your knowledge of the cocoa industry, your knowledge of the nutmeg industry, and the potential that they both have for the transformation of not just the economy in Grenada, but directly the lives of those involved in it, meaning the farmers.
Okay, well, what I would tell the cocoa and the nutmeg farmers is that we have to understand that the the paradigm in the world has shifted, right? And the 1946 ordinance is outdated and is no longer sufficient to basically guide the industry, right? And as farmers who would have invested a significant amount of energy, time, effort, and so on into this business, it is our responsibility to be objective, right? And to look at it from all sides of the coin, not just look at it from one side, and look at it from both a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term perspective. And I think farmers need to educate themselves a little more, find out the product that you're producing, what is it being used for out there on the international market. Do a little research on your own. Don't take what Leonard Simonard say. Don't take what Minister Bola, former Minister Bola say, or what anybody say. Do some research on your own and try and find out the value of, the commodity, the real value of the commodity and where it is used. And come to any discussion with an open mind. I think that's one of the key fundamental things. A lot of the time you go to farmers' meetings and people come with like a set idea in their head and that's all they're talking for the whole meeting and they're not listening to anything else, right? And I think that is a legacy of GCNA and GCNA in particular area meetings and so on, and is actually a control mechanism to keep the farmers thinking along a particular line so that they can be controlled, right? So I think part of it is just opening your mind. The second thing is that I think farmers need to look at, okay, there is new legislation, but we as farmers would have been key stakeholders in the industry. What is it in this new legislation for us? I personally would like for the boards to be dissolved and for a new company to be formed, similar to what was done with the cocoa board in Trinidad, and form a new company. And I would like to see the farming community given shares in this new company and actually hold share certificates in this company. Not necessarily control of the company, but shares in the company. So I know that when I die, I could leave my shares to my children, my grandchildren, and so on. Right now, that doesn't exist. So just like the taximen, for example, have CTEC. They have their big gas station down here in Grenada, and they have their shares, and they pass it on to their children, and that sort of thing. Farmers need to at least come up to that, right? So whether it be a company or a cooperative, I think farmers need to consider that and look into that. In addition to that, no, this company or this new cooperative need to hire professional people, right? Need to hire people who know what they're doing to run and manage it, right? And need to basically become a player for itself on the international market rather than basically being represented exclusively by agents. There's nothing wrong with being represented by agents, but when an agent controls 100% of your business and you have no footprint on the international market, I have a problem with that as well, right? So that's basically what I would like to say. That's my opinion on it.
Food for thought, sir. Food for thought. And I hope that those who heard you understand what you're speaking about. I don't think you're picking any sides. You're just looking at the industry as it is in its present form, what it was before, and what it could be in the future. I don't know if Ms. Duncan has anything else for you, but I thank you.
There's a question on the live video, on the live feed here for you. It reads, with the liberalization of the sector, will that make it much easier for ventures such as West Indian spices to survive, knowing the challenges that the manufacturing sector faces with the current structure?
Well, the answer to that question is yes, for sure. The only reason, well, first of all, West India Spices is still surviving. It has, I am no longer involved, but it's still on the market, right? As far as I know, it's still operational. It's a lot smaller than when I was involved, but it has been surviving. And the main limitation for ventures like West India Spices is a predictable, reliable supply of raw material. Because if you remember in the beginning, even when we started on that W&W, GCNA had refused to sell W&W any produce. As a matter of fact, the chairman at the time, Alan Maguire, sold some nutmeg to us, and then he was removed as chairman, right, from the association. And we then basically had to started buying directly from the farmers, and the police actually came to arrest me. And I was brought before the magistrate in Grenville Magistrate Court for buying nutmeg illegally, right? And then we had to go to court. And we went to court and we looked at the same ordinance, and the ordinance allows for domestic use, right? And so we had to spend a whole set of money. We had to fly up our QC from Trinidad, right? The association hired Dr. Francis Alexis, so you know it's big money we're talking about. We went to court and we actually won the matter because they were trying to interpret the ordinance as domestic use mean only household use. And we were saying, no, domestic use means use within Grenada, right? And we won the matter, but it cost us because the case alone, we spent over $100 and something thousand just fighting that case just to be able to survive.
Wow.
That could kill a venture, I mean, from the start.
Right.
You understand? You didn't make no money yet, you know.
Right.
You're just trying to buy nutmeg to process, and you had to spend $100 and something thousand in court.
Right.
And get tied up. And in those days, it wasn't as bad as now, right? But we still get tied up for like about 9 months in court.
Right. And
right? And it wasn't a nice feeling to have police show up at your business place with a warrant saying that you're a criminal, you're buying nutmeg illegally, and having to go to court. You understand?
Right.
From a personal perspective, it did some psychological damage to me and my family at the time.
Right.
You understand? And I was a young man at that time. I was only 25 years old.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, a young man, 25 years old, trying to find my footing in the world, right? Just coming out of university, getting into business and so on, and I'm faced with all of that. You understand? And here the hard part about it, I'm a nutmeg farmer and I'm still selling to GCNA every week. Right? So at a point in time, the question was, well, I mean, am I not a member of GCNA? Right? How could the same association that I'm a member of take me, a farmer, to court? You understand the point I'm making?
Yep.
Right?
We're seeing it.
So it become a constitutional thing about my right to freely dispose of my property, all kind of thing. So the answer to the question is yes, if they only liberalize the industry. A lot of young people, I mean, and you have so much young people with potential now in the IT sector and so on. People could be doing, you know, small businesses and selling nutmeg products on Amazon and, you know, making money and that kind of thing, and none of that happening because everybody afraid to touch it.
Right.
Right? So I think the legislation is a key thing, right? And I don't think it should be something that should be politicized. I think it's something that we should all sit down as a country and really study and look at it and basically, you know, make the best decision for everybody in the country, because nutmeg touches everybody in Grenada, especially in the rural community.
Very
you
much
understand?
So.
I
Very
live in
much so.
St. Mark's right now. A lot of the people in St. Mark's, where I live, suffering because we are accustomed just running down the road to the pool and selling we nutmeg. You get a little change and you can go and you can buy a soft drink, you can buy sugar, you can drink. You know the pool opening from 8 to 3 o'clock. Monday to Friday, right? So nutmeg was like liquid cash.
Right.
Now, to sell nutmeg, I mean, I have how much nutmeg in bag just pack up, right? And every day asking the workers, well, you know when the pool opening, right? Nobody could say, right? So it is impacting, the current situation is impacting heavily on the rural economy in particular, but it's impacting on everybody in Grenada. And we didn't have to reach to this, right? If we had just done what we were supposed to do 20, 15 or even 10 years ago.
So I have a question for you. As a nutmeg farmer, as it stands right now, over the years, what benefits have you received as being a member of the Nutmeg Association?
Well, there's no benefits really to being a member of the Nutmeg Association. I mean, really and truly it's a loose membership because there are no rules or anything. You have a piece of land, you have some trees on it, and you want to sell your nutmeg, so you go and you register, you get a card, and you buy your book and you sell. But to say there are any tangible benefits, there's none really. As a matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, for me personally, GCNA has been more of a hindrance than a benefit, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if other farmers' experience are different from mine. You get to go to area meetings. Half of the time you're in area meetings, people cussing and quarreling. Nothing of substance is really discussed, right? And you get to go home frustrated at the end of the day, right? A couple years ago, they took money out from us. They say they were going to do a pension plan. The money disappeared. We never hear anything about pension plan. So that's the whole thing about it. So there's really and truly no real benefit. I guess for the people who involved in the nutmeg politics and on the board and getting stipend from the board and, you know, that kind of thing, they benefiting. But the ordinary nutmeg farmer on the ground not really benefiting much from it.
Right. So having made that point, there are some farmers out there that are saying, listen, government wants to get involved and they're concerned about the assets. They're concerned about the
what assets?
Well, that's the question I want to ask
you. You don't have
farmer.
assets. Well, the farmers who saying that clearly have not read the 1946 Act, right? Because the GCNA, and you see this cooperative nutmeg association, this cooperative, that's a word that is very misleading.
Of
GCNA is not a cooperative, right? And I challenge anybody to prove to me that GCNA is a cooperative. GCNA is a statutory body that was set up by the Legislative Council, right, by T.E. Noble Smith, right, who basically was the owner of Nyangan Forest Estate. And you want to know why T.E. Noble Smith set up GCNA? Because in the 1940s, fellas like Nyack, fellas like Noel, people like my grandfather, William Henry Otway Ferguson, was trading in nutmegs during World War II because the ships weren't coming, right? And they made some money when the ships finally came after the war ended. And these plantation owners, right? Because you have to remember that the current population in Grenada wasn't, the structure of the population wasn't the same. Most of the people that own the plantation, these plantation owners who were the original members of the GCNA, weren't actually living in Grenada. They were absentee plantation owners. And they didn't want these guys to become as rich and as powerful as
they were, yeah.
So they formed their association to basically
monopolize the trade. They
monopolize the trade.
Yep.
Right? That's what a lot of people don't understand. So this thing about it was formed for farmers, for the small man. It didn't have no small man in GCN. As a matter of fact, Carriacou went bankrupt as a result of the formation of GCN, and that's how we lost Carlton. And that's how Carlton ended up in Cocoa Association hands. Right? And Nyack and them had to diversify. They buy buildings in Grenville, because they probably made the most amount of money out of the nutmeg trade.
Yep.
Right. So they were able to diversify and put their assets in other things. Right? And GCNA was not the monopoly organization in Grenada for nutmeg until 1955. A lot of people don't know that. even after the legislation was passed in 1947, GCNA had only control about 15% of the nutmeg industry, of the trading of the nutmeg industry, up until 1955. And let me tell you what happened in 1955 that caused that to change. As a matter of fact, before I go there, before 1955, T. Noble Smith and the GCNA was under investigation by the Crown Colony government at the time for embezzlement, because they got a lot of money from the British government and they couldn't account for it for the formation of GCNA. But in 1955, when Hurricane Janet passed and destroyed most of the trees, T. Noble Smith was the equivalent of the Minister of Agriculture at the time. And he was able to channel all the resources from Britain into that association. And that is when GCNA actually became the monopoly trader. Right? But prior to 1955, guys used to pack up their truck and thing and go down on the carnage and load the nutmeg. As a matter of fact, in my family, we have photos, old postcards of people doing that. Right opposite where the public library is there now. The lighter, what the boats that they used to call the lighters used to come in, take the nutmeg and bring it out to the main ship that used to be anchored out. Right? And Thomas Hankey and Company was one of the biggest trading companies in London that used to buy nutmeg from people like my grandfather. Right? So this thing about GCNA being a small man organization and a cooperative for farmers and so on, that's foolishness. As a matter of fact, most of the people are calling themselves farmers now only became farmers after Gary started breaking up their estates and so on, and that's how they own property. So at the time when the ordinance was passed, these people didn't exist, right? So the ordinance didn't cater for them.
The ordinance then catered for what was called the plantocracy at the time.
Yes, that's what the ordinance catered for. It catered for the plantocracy to keep the money with the plantocracy. Right? And so when I hear these guys going around now to the area meeting, talking about the GCNA like it was this kind of socialist organization for the masses of the people and things, that's foolishness.
Wow.
Right? But you see, they could only do that because a lot of us don't really take time to study the history and to get a clear understanding of where we come from so that we could chart a proper course to know where we're going.
Definitely.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. And that is a lot of history right there. I feel like I need to do a program just for you so you can so you can give us because it's important. I mean, as a young individual, I didn't even know all of this information as to the history of our nutmeg. I mean, the nutmeg is placed on our flag. You know, it is part of our culture, but what do we really know about the growing of nutmeg in Grenada? What do we know about the history of our nutmeg, the trade, and this nutmeg association that's been formed? I mean, what you are giving to us is a lifelong history lesson, you know, and it's important. And we have a call coming in on the line, and I'm sure they want to ask a question on your behalf. So let me see
if hold him there for a little while.
Just stick a pin right there. Let me see if I can get that call in while you're there, okay?
Okay.
All right. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Lost them, boy.
No, it doesn't seem like we could get him in at the same time. But I do want us to and do I still have you, Mr. Saint Bernard?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Now, I want us to take time, because I am going to invite you in studio maybe by the end of this week or next week, if you have the time, to come and let's sit and talk about this history that you are giving us, because you really have imparted on us a lot of knowledge. And I mean, as a young individual in farming, it's not something that you have experienced, but it's something that you have taken time to research and understand. And if you can do it, then why can't the rest of us, take the time to understand the history of nutmeg, understand the history of GCNA, and to find out where we come from, and as you rightfully said, chart the course to where we go next. you know. So I want to thank you because we are coming to the close of our program, but I want to thank you so much for all of the information that you have shared with us. It is a lot of information. You have given us a different perspective, a different point of view to look at. Apart from just the legalities of the situation, you've given us a wider range of things to think about when we consider this merger and liberalization of GCNA and GCA. So we just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Always my pleasure.
All
I
right.
want to express my personal thanks to you too, Mr. St. Bernard, and good luck in whatever you do. And I really do hope that we'll get to the stage where your passion that you have, chemistry and utilizing our local product, you can get an opportunity to get back into that, make monies for yourself, but also for Grenada.
Well, to be honest with you, a couple of years ago, I say I retired from the nutmeg industry. You know?
I hope something about this merger will cause you to come back.
After 10, 20 years, I get licks, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there is hope, and maybe I might consider getting back into it at some point in time later.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, and we will keep in touch.
All right, no problem.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Now, this caller, Mr. Bola, has been calling religiously for the past 30 minutes. Hello, good morning. Caller, you have to listen to me on the phone and not on the radio. Good morning, caller. Hello. Okay. Caller, when you're calling in, you have to listen to me on the phone and not on the radio. There is a delay. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am doing better. I love the conversation you just had with the brother. And if you can, please dedicate a show or two or three just to getting the facts out on what GCNA is, should be, or could be, and how we should move forward. But the history on that was really, really awesome.
Yeah.
I would have loved to ask him a question, and maybe Mr. Bowler can help in this regard.
I'll try. I don't know as much history as he does, but I have a little bit that I understand.
No, this is not about history. This is actually about investment. So I had gotten some investors in New York to put up $2.5 million US to do nutmeg oil in Grenada.
Yeah.
I contacted the GCNA. They told me, when I got here, they told me the machine that broke was $50,000. So I went about trying to get some money investors to get this thing done. I got the investors. When I contacted the GCNA, they told me the numbers I was dealing with was not correct. Whoever gave me, which was people from the GCNA, the numbers they gave me was wrong, and that the whole entire plant itself, building everything, was garbage. I would have to start from scratch. Obviously, the investors were not interested in starting over from scratch, so they ended up moving on. We did not produce nutmeg oil. At the time, the numbers I was hearing for nutmeg oil was almost astronomical. Like, cocaine wasn't even getting these kind of numbers. What I don't understand is, as a country, GCNA, cocoa nutmeg, for the length of time that we've produced some of the best nutmeg on the planet and cocoa in terms of quality, and being that the price of nutmeg oil is so high, how come, in terms of diversification, how come we haven't added a component of producing nutmeg oil in Grenada to then export with a value added to it? I would have loved to hear what his thoughts was on that. And maybe Mr. Bowler can give me some idea, because I'm looking for investors to invest in that, because I think it's a worthwhile investment. I think the nutmeg oil industry is we're not even, I don't think we're even a player in that industry, and there's a lot of money in it. Nutmeg oil is a very, very important thing. What would you say to someone like me, who would be looking to talk to an investor to encourage them to invest in cocoa and nutmeg, especially in the nutmeg oil industry in Grenada?
All right. Thank you so much, caller. I want to free up the line, so you're going to listen for your answer.
Yes, it's unfortunate, I would say, first and foremost, that you've gotten that far and wasn't able to bring to fruition that dream. And you had the money, you had the people to back you. The association itself, the Nutmeg Association, did invest in doing some refining or value added in terms of extracting oil from the nutmeg. They had a plant that was set up in Sauters in St. Patrick's at one of the buying points. My understanding is that the equipment that they had, the factory that they tried to put in was very aged, very old and ancient and archaic. And so there were frequent breakdowns and it did not last for very long, as they told you, that it needed $50,000 for repair, and then they tell you, well, everything is gone, it's no good. That's my understanding from it. But the gentleman whom you were listening to just finished was part of another project that started some years ago with Mr. Joel Webb, where they were extracting nutmeg oil. He eventually, after Hurricane Ivan in 2003, was it 2003, 2004, bought the company over, which still exists with modern equipment and the ability to extract not only oil from the nutmeg, but all of the other spices that we have in Grenada, so clove and cinnamon and whatever, the factory is able to extract those oils. There's still good investment in value-added products in nutmeg. Grenada is known to have a fine quality nutmeg. And I did say, and we heard Mr. St. Bernard say it again, the major player in the nutmeg industry now is India, but thank God they are utilizing most of the nutmeg that they produce domestically for the food industry, the cosmetic industry, even medically. They use certain parts of the nutmeg for medication. Hello. And so, yes. So there's still hope, caller. There's a caller online that we want to bring in. There's still hope, and I think you should continue working, trying to raise your money, and sooner than later you'll get the opportunity, I believe, to come into the market.
All right. Good morning, caller.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Duncan.
Hi. Good morning.
Mr. Bowler, good day. Well, Mr. Duncan, when I called you last week, I told you about Mr. St. Bernard. I worked with him from Mr. Webb era to when he owned the factory, and even when he does work in the nutmeg industry, he always bring me in. And I could tell you what he's saying is factual. Mr. Duncan, even when I told you last week, I am telling you personal experience. Mr. St. Bernard didn't go in it, but I can tell you, Mr. St. Bernard has lost millions of US dollars because of people from overseas who come and want to do business with West India spices. People who come down and say, listen, we have thousands of chain stores all over the world. All we want from you is for the GCNA to give you a reliable, regular supplier, not like get a contract, and the GCNA refuse. It even went further that this factory could employ about 100 persons. And not only that, what Mr. Kennedy don't tell you is a state-of-the-art factory. It has machines that wasn't in this part of the Caribbean, and the factory can also grind nutmeg. So the factory could have sold ground spices and plus pure nutmeg oil. I mean pure, no chemicals, as they use a steam process. Also, pimento oil, ground pimento, fever grass, lemongrass oil, and plus they were going into ginger. So farmers could plant ginger and sell to the factory, and they will make ground ginger and ginger oil. And I tell you, and this factory would have impact farmers all over Grenada and plus employ 100 workers in the factory. And I tell you, the first Mr. St. Bernard, sometimes when I work with him in the factory, he cries because all he wants is just to do his business, to employ people, and and they frustrate him. So as I tell you, is that the business with Mr. Webb and the business and even present owners, they still frustrate them. I won't call no names now, but the present owners, they are frustrated because they want to start and they can't start because the GCNA refuse to give them a reliable supply and not right. Understand? So as I said, Mr. Duncan and Mr. Bowler, what Mr. St. Bernard says is true, and Mr. Thomas is one of the best persons you can find in this part of the Caribbean when it comes to this type of work. He's good and he knows what he's saying. And I do support the move with the government because I know when the factory will be able to buy, not make straight from the farmers or whatever, and liberate the market, if we employ over 100 persons in the Bird Grove region, Mount Long, all over St. Andrews around them. Plus farmers can make money selling things to them. So thank you, Ms. Duncan and good evening, Duncan. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your program. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you so much for your contribution. So, Mr. Bola, it's very clear that there is a lot of dialogue that still needs to be had as it relates to this entire GCNA issue. And a lot more education needs to be given on this topic, so people can have a clearer understanding of what is happening, what has happened, what is about to happen, or what is possible, so we can all make objective decisions. And I keep saying to individuals, don't let people tell you what to believe. Listen to the facts, because the facts are undisputed. And make your judgments based on those facts. And forget how you feel about the administration. Forget how you feel about Dr. Mitchell. Forget how you feel about the Minister of Agriculture. And think to yourself if what you are agreeing or disagreeing to is beneficial to you and your country. And that is what must be most important in the decisions that you make. And the gentleman, Mr. Seminard, made a very important point that I want to use in this statement. The opposition is banking on the fact or banking on the knowledge that some of you do not like the administration, and banking on the knowledge that you do not like Dr. Mitchell, and using that knowledge to push whatever agenda it is that they have. Do not be misled, or do not allow yourselves to be misled because people are aware of your emotional vulnerability. It's just like Mr. Bola, I know you ain't like me. So people on the other side will be telling you things, and gassing you up because they know you ain't like me. You understand? Just an idea. I know you like me. I ain't worried. But you understand, we have to be very careful on people using our emotions to push their agendas. So use facts always. And that's why I always tell people, facts will never lead you astray. Somebody said go up to half an hour. No more, Mr. Bola.
Well, I wish we had the time to, because it's a really interesting discussion. And as I've said before, no one has yet come across with 5, 10, 15, or 20 points to show me how merging the two associations are going to negatively affect the farmers. They have not done that yet, and that's where the argument is. Yeah. We need to know the history. We need to understand why certain things were done.
Yeah.
Absolutely important. But we also need to look at the present situation of both associations, cocoa and nutmeg. Understand what is happening, understand where they're going, what are the internal things that are working inside that the farmers don't know. Where is the shares? Where's the farmer's ownership? Where's the asset? Who does it belong to? And make that move, that quantum leap now for the greater good of the farmers of Grenada. And that's what the government is interested in, and has always been interested in. Because for every occasion when there has been something happening, they come to government, ask for assistance, and has been given. Never were they denied. Because government always put forward the interest of the farmers. We need to help the farmers. But the time has come when we need to move beyond where we are at this point and do something different that will help. Government doesn't want to own the industry. They don't want to operate it. They don't want to run it. They just want it to be operated better, where the full benefits can come so that farmers can benefit more than they are benefiting now. Time is on us, so I just wish you all the very best. Go to the area meetings. I understand that on Thursday of this week, I don't know the time exactly, there will be an engagement at the Lux Cinema in Grenville. If I find more information, we certainly is going to announce it to you. Farmers, you should go and ask the questions. Ask the why not. Ask what will happen. What am I going to lose? What is going to be taken away from me if we merge? How? Tell us how it is bad for us and why it is bad for us before we make decisions and jump up and say all kind of things without having the facts. Do enjoy your day. Do as we ask. Continue to listen and seek for facts before you make decisions. Make informed decisions. Thank you.
All right, guys, and as we say here every day, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. In whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe, be secure. We always want to be talking with you and never about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Government continues to evaluate protocols guiding reopening of borders. We'll have details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Monday, June 29th, 2020, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The government of Grenada is continuing to evaluate and refine the protocols that will guide the reopening of the country's borders to commercial flights. That's according to Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. During an address to the nation on Sunday, Dr. Mitchell said so far, chartered flights have agreed to the protocols in place, which include covering the cost of quarantine accommodation, testing before departure and arrival into Grenada. Dr. Mitchell acknowledged that the health and safety of nationals is of paramount importance, and adhering to the protocols brought forward will indeed curb the spread of the COVID-19.
Our protocols may be perceived as rigorous, but they have to be, because public health and safety are at risk. We have tested and evaluated the protocols and identified areas for improvement. Therefore, for the immediate future, Grenada will only continue to welcome chartered flights, and these offer greater levels of due diligence with respect to the established protocols, which include testing before departure, testing upon arrival, and agreement to bear the cost of quarantine.
He said completion of measures to accommodate commercial flights are being made.
At this point, we continue to work on the finalization of protocols before we begin to accept commercial flights. Many are wishing we can remain in the protective bubble that has kept us safe since March, and that we can maintain the COVID-free status announced earlier this month. However, this is not a practical long-term option, as Caribbean countries may not have reached consensus and when we reopen more borders. But given the importance of tourism, this is generally regarded as one of the critical milestones in the effort to restart economies. The timing, however, must be right.
Acting Commissioner of Police Edwin Martin says the RGPF will always be professional in handling each report that is received, irrespective of the individual who makes the report. He was addressing concerns surrounding an incident that occurred in Fort Judy on Thursday, June 25th, which resulted in the death of a dog and the subsequent alleged assault of Evan Smith. During a press conference on Monday, Commissioner Martin said 2 residents of Fort Judy are assisting police with their investigations. Directly addressing concerns about the matter not being investigated, but referred to as a private one, the acting commissioner said issuing a medical form signals the commencement of an investigation.
Over the past 2 days, we have been witnessing a burst of response that has been challenging for law enforcement in some respects. To date, over the past 2 days, 3 persons as a result have been arrested for non-compliance with law enforcement and violation of our regulation as it relates to COVID-19. We take no pleasure in having to execute these arrests, but it becomes pivotal for us to maintain law and order.
Commissioner Martin said no arrest can be made or no charges can be laid before the medical form is returned.
The completion and return of a medical form is pivotal in determining the extent of harm caused and therefore the type of charge that should be brought against an alleged perpetrator. Therefore, charges could not be laid prior to the receipt of a medical form. It should be noted further that the police authority allows us for detention of persons in suspected criminal activity for up to 48 hours. Thereafter, without sufficient evidence for charges to be laid appropriately, the detained individual will have to be released. Note that 48 hours after the occurrence of this incident, the police was not yet in receipt of the medical form.
However, 2 individuals have since been arrested and charged.
The police has since arrested and charged 2 persons. Sarah Hutton and Donald Kavinga have been arrested for causing harm. They have since been released, however, on bail in the sum of $10,000 with 1 surety. This offense carries a maximum penalty of $3,000 or imprisonment for 1 year or both. The other traffic-related issues in this matter is still under investigation and a clear determination has not yet been made.
Continuing with the news, government has received $1 million from the Indian and UN Development Partnership Fund to assist in COVID-19 relief response initiatives in the fisheries sector. That announcement was made on Monday by Minister with Responsibility for Fisheries, Honorable Alvin Dabrio, at a church service to commemorate the 2020 Fisherman's Birthday celebrations. The service was held at the St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church in Guelph.
And it also recognizes that the capacity of those producing for the local markets is limited in relation to production and marketing infrastructure. So this initiative, therefore, aims to provide relief for small fishers for loss of revenues due to the inability to export and also to increase the capacity to meet the local demand for other value-added products.
The fisheries sector will also benefit from the extension of coverage of insurance policy for fisherfolk from the World Bank. For years, fishermen have died or were injured while earning a livelihood at sea and were not eligible to receive any benefits. Minister Dabrio says the World Bank has agreed to cover the policy for another 2 years.
The World Bank, they have agreed to extend the coverage of the insurance policy for us for additional 2 years, because the policy I think is over 200,000 PS, 200 and some $1,000. So that has been a good saving to us for the industry, and I want to publicly thank the World Bank for that genuine effort. So the Ministries of Climate Resilience and Finance, they are reviewing the revised operational manual and completing progress reports for submission to the World Bank so that we could continue enjoying this benefit.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Climate Resilience and Fisheries, Roxy Hutchinson McLeish, gave remarks on behalf of Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade. She recognized that although COVID-19 has caused a reduction in activities to recognize the fishermen and celebrate the successes of the industry, their role in economic growth and development remains significant and must be commended. This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
Do you still have EC 1 and 2 cent coins? If you do, then you have until the end of this month, 30th June, to spend them, exchange, or deposit them at your commercial bank. After 30th June, you will not be able to use your 1 and 2 cents as they will no longer be legal tender. Find